Today, a bunch of my family members are home, but I hope you're not going to hear them through the microphone. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Oh My Growth. My name is Mindy. Today, I'm going to be talking about a topic that is actually pretty heavy, but I think it's an important one to talk about. I've been waiting with this episode. I feel like this was one of the first ones I wrote, but I waited with it because it felt like it's not something I want to start off with. But now that I'm more comfortable, I want to do it. We're going to be talking about grief, triggers, and also loss today. So if you didn't already know this, I feel like a lot of people who know me know this. Probably all people who know me know this. But in 2017, I lost my mom. And I've been doing a lot of inner work this past year, probably more than I have at any other point in my life. And more, I'm just realizing how many things kind of relate back to that event. Loss can really change your attachment style. It can change how you show up in relationships, in friendships, in family. And yeah, I think a lot of emotions and reactions I've had, maybe still have, but have had in the past, definitely go back to that. And I don't think that's a unique experience. I think that happens to a lot of people when they go through something like that. It really alters the direction of your life. I've always been someone who openly talks to her friends and her family about her feelings. I'm a very emotionally charged person, and that is something I used to feel really ashamed for. But I've learned that it's not a bad thing to be someone who shares your emotions, because I think that has helped me normalize my triggers and normalize my human behavior, human instincts, human feelings, because I've realized nothing I feel is unique. Nothing I experience is unique. And that's kind of really comforting. So I'm hoping that maybe parts or the whole episode, but at least parts of this episode might be something that triggers a thought in you and makes you self-reflect and think a little bit about these concepts, which we don't talk about very often. The first thing I want to acknowledge when it comes to triggers and things that I'm going to talk about in the episode is that triggers are not excuses. You can get triggered by something, you can communicate that to people and ask them to meet you where you need to be met, but a trigger is not an excuse to get angry at people, to blame people, to call people bad things just because you get triggered by something they do. We're all very different. We all have very different triggers, very different experiences, and not everyone is going to mesh with you, and that's okay. But what triggers are a signal for growth. The first thing I'm going to get into when it comes to this and how it impacted me is how loss impacted my attachment style, how loss impacted my anxiety, specifically in relationships. There was a period of my time, what? There was a period of my life where I was frequently in pretty heated arguments, and I've never liked arguing. I can't say it wasn't ever my fault, because it definitely was, but I was frequently in arguments with someone, and I just remember feeling really, really, really anxious in those moments. Most of the time, I don't think I even felt angry, to be honest. I think it was anxiety. I was so anxious. I hated arguing. And instead of like getting mad and pushing away or whatever, I gripped on so tight in response to those situations. And this led to me misidentifying myself as someone who's anxiously attached to people. I have learned that I'm not an anxiously attached person, but this was also before I had done the actual work I needed to do when it came to loss and when it came to my response to these kind of things, because I think that's only really occurred this past year. My realization was that I had this triggered attachment because of loss, unhealed loss, unresolved stress. And I took that out on the situation by holding on so tight instead of coming from a space where I could grow and practice self-awareness. Most people get anxious when they argue. That's not that unique. But what I'm trying to say is when you experience loss, you often become someone who's very afraid of losing people because you're hyper aware of the fact that you can lose people. And so when you're in the process of feeling like you're losing someone, you could display anxiously attached patterns that maybe don't actually identify with who you are as a person. So that was just one realization I've had, and that leads into point number 2 that I wanted to talk about today, which is how loss impacts how we love other people. Because loss does, at least for a while, create a lasting shift in how we view and handle our relationships. And when I say relationships here, I don't only necessarily mean romantic ones, although that can be one area where you see a lot of these patterns. But I also mean friendships. I also mean family relationships. The truth is, we can say with certainty that every single one of us is going to experience loss at some point in our lives. So if you're blessed and you haven't experienced that yet, you are going to at some point. The shift that happens in your brain when this happens, I can't really explain in words. It is a mindset shift. Like, it changes so much, and it's very hard to explain. The best way I can explain it is, like, for me anyway, I developed this push-pull behavior where I had a fear of conflict, and I also had this need for connection, a really strong need for connection. So emotional safety for me became a necessity. It was like essential to me, almost to an unhealthy degree. In this situation, using my personal example, I was anxiously triggered whenever there was an argument because I was super triggered by losing people. I was so scared of losing people. That's something I have to communicate really clearly and explain where I'm coming from. And people who are meant to be in your lives, who are good for you, who can grow with you, they're going to meet you there. They're going to hear you out. Loving people really hard is a beautiful thing, but it can definitely lead to panic when it comes to conflict. You have to distinguish between what healthy appreciation for a person is and what desperate attachment looks like. You can't abandon your needs just because you want to avoid conflict. You can't abandon your needs and your wants and your desires just because you don't want to fight with someone, just because you're afraid of losing them. You can't do that. It's not good for you, it's not good for them. And that was a lesson that took some time for me to learn, to be honest. So it's way easier said than done. But long term, you're not going to be happy if you're just kind of shape-shifting to fit into whatever narrative there is for you just because you don't want to lose people around you. Truth is, you are going to lose people around you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Kind of how life goes. I've said that in multiple episodes now in different ways, but it's just so normal to grow apart from certain people and to experience that. Like, it's a part of life. But people who are meant for you, they're gonna be there. Don't worry about it. On the other hand, I also want to speak out to those people who maybe find themselves in the other side of this. If you are someone who frequently finds yourself in arguments or frequently finds yourself picking small fights, I do want to remind you of the fact that everyone you love, and this goes for everyone, by the way, not just people who pick fights and argue and stuff, but just in general, everyone you love one day is going to be gone. I know that feels like I slapped you in the face. I kind of did, with love. But that's just because it's true. If you have someone good in your life, someone who cares for you, and you consistently feel the need to push those people away, it is maybe time to look inward and understand why that happens. Because you are deserving of people who love you, who care about you, and you deserve to be able to embrace that instead of feeling like you have to push it away. The next point I want to get into, which is so important, is appreciating your own time. This is where the paradox of time comes into play. There isn't so much of time, and at the same time, it feels like there's so much of it. If you're listening to this, chances are you're pretty lucky. Chances are you're in a situation in life where you have many opportunities, where you can safely listen to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. I think losing my mom made me take life more seriously, made me appreciate life way more than I was before. Respecting the fact that I have limited of life. I don't have all the life in the world. The concept of death is terrifying. The concept of growing older is scary. It is some people's worst fear to grow older. I mean, I have so many friends and stuff who are fearing turning 30. 30 is not even that old. But to be honest, being mortal means you have the opportunity to appreciate time. You have the opportunity to be choosy, to be picky. If you had endless amounts of time, you wouldn't be. You could spend months in bed. I mean, you can still spend months in bed if you want to. But if you were immortal, you could do that with no stress, nothing at all. Because, like, you're not wasting any time. You have all the time in the world. So if you have endless amounts of time, who cares when you start, right? But being mortal, you know that's not how it works. If you want something, you gotta go get it. Mortality is motivation. That's how I choose to see it anyway. And it is so important to appreciate your time. And that goes for wasting it on the wrong situations, the wrong people, the wrong country where you don't want to live, the wrong job. You don't have all the time in the world. Don't waste it. Now I want to talk a little bit about loss and health consciousness, because when you lose someone and you experience grief, at least me, maybe this isn't a universal thing, but how I dealt with my mom passing away was developing a huge anxiety over health. I thought I was dying all the time. What I think is important to realize is that you are not the exception. Your life is not guaranteed. My life is not guaranteed. Take care of your body. You have one body. Take good care of it. You are going to think, it won't be me, and like I'm the exception until it's not. And to be honest, it can happen to anyone at any point in time. Take good care of yourself. Thank you. I know there's a lot of ways to handle grief. Honestly, I can say that when it came to handling grief, I handled it really, really, really badly in the beginning. Like I said already, I had a health freak out. And I also was just anxious a lot of the time, and I was really sad a lot of the time, and I really let it dominate my life. I would think about future case scenarios where I was like, oh, she's not going to be there, and I would get really upset, and I would cry a lot. Like, I feel like I'm about to cry right now when I just think about it. My coping mechanisms that did work and that were healthy were one, leaning on my dad, having conversations with him about it, asking him questions about her, but also two, learn to regulate my intrusive thoughts. Because intrusive thoughts are going to be there. You can't really control what you think about, but you can control how you view those thoughts. I'll give an example. The truth is, losing my mom hurt more than anything I've ever experienced. But at the same time, there was nothing I could do about it. It was completely out of my control. So after a while, I tried to shift my focus from what I can control to what I can do with what's left. There are a lot of things that feel impossible to make better when you lose someone. For example, is it hard to think about things like my future wedding day? Yeah, it is, because she's not going to be there. And every little girl wants her mom to be there on her wedding day, but that's out of my control. So, what can I do about it? I could dedicate a seat to her at the reception. I could ask my dad or my sister to do a speech on her behalf. I could wear something that was hers. I could choose her favorite song as the first dance song. There are many ways I can make her a part of that experience, even without her being there. And when you focus on the solutions, it does long term make things feel more manageable. So if you're in that situation, that's my advice to you. It's never going to be completely easy, but it definitely gets easier with every step of the way. And it gets easier when you lean on people you love. It gets easier when you communicate and when you focus on solutions instead of things that are out of your control. As a closing reflection, I would like to call to the listener. I'm going to ask you to reflect a little bit. If you are completely honest with yourself right now, what are the areas of your life where you are wasting time holding on to grudges, or taking people for granted? Do you often think about how lucky we are to wake up in the morning, to go to bed at night, to own a sweater or a jacket during winter, to be at loss for what you want to make for dinner tonight, to feel happy, sad, confused, anxious, excited, cold, warm, to just experience emotions, to have freedom of speech, to love someone, or to be loved by someone? The most dangerous thing you can assume is that you are going to wake up in the morning and go back to bed at night, because there's nothing guaranteeing such a thing. And if nothing is guaranteed, maybe it is worth taking a step back and just trying to appreciate what we have while we have it. You'll never regret loving someone right, but you might regret not doing so when you have the chance, including yourself. That's all I wanted to talk about today. I know it was some heavy topics, but we got through it together. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk about something more lighthearted next week. Promise. But I wish you a really wonderful morning, evening, night, or day wherever you're at in the world. And I will see you next time. Take care of yourself.